So today's video is all about learning how to make a mega menu. And what is a mega menu? It is these giant drop downs that you get on all of these sites. A lot of sites are using them. These are some big brands I'm looking at now. They sometimes have pictures in them like this. Sometimes it's just links like that. It's these big menus that have sort of these subcategories in them that you can then go around and choose extra stuff instead of just a regular simple drop down menu, or even just a regular menu across the top. So if you go online, I'm sure you've run into things like this. So we're going to be taking a look at how to actually build one of them. So stick around and you'll see how to do just that. And just a really quick shout out before we get started. I just want to say thank you so much to all the new subscribers. My channel started slow. I've been doing pretty much nothing to promote it. It's just been growing on its own. And it's been slow and steady, and I've just had a whole bunch of people subscribe recently, and it's sort of blowing my mind. So thank you so much for subscribing. I really appreciate it. If you aren't subscribed, of course, hit the subscribe button. New video every Wednesday about learning code and all of that. But that's enough of that. You guys want to learn how to make a mega menu, so let's go and look at how to do that. So what I've done now is I've set up a basic menu. I'm assuming if you're looking at making this crazy big menu, you know how to do these a nice basic menu like this. If you're not too sure about what I've done so far, do check out my video on how to create a menu with an awesome hover effect on it. And once you're done with that, come back over here. So as we can see, I have this nice simple one. I have a little hover effect on there. I'll have to change the color because I can't see my text. But I have a very simple one. I have a navigation. Inside my navigation, I have a container. Inside my container, a UL, which I've named main menu, or menu main, I should say. And we'll see why once we start making some more interesting things with this. And then I've put in a few list items here that are links that I've just called tab 1 to 4, since I don't have any real content to be putting in there. For the CSS, I've imported my Google font here. I've so far done my box sizing on there to make padding a little bit easier to deal with. I've set up some basics on my body. I've created my container just to make it work. And a bit more relevant to what we're actually doing, I've styled my nav. The nav itself has pretty basic styling. I have a white background on it and a very subtle drop shadow. For the UL, I've given it a margin and a padding of 0 and the list style of none like we normally would. And I've also thrown a position relative on here, which is going to come back and help us a lot later on. And I'll mention that when we get there. I've made my LIs display inline blocks, so just so they'd go one next to each other. You can also do that with a float. I tend to use inline block because that way I can still use text align center on here. Text line center. If I need a centered one instead of left or right, which you can't do with float, but if you're more comfortable using floats, by all means, go for it. And here I've just styled my my nav A, so I've given it the color of my colors, some padding on there to give it the size, and I've created here my hover effect, which I also will need to change the nav A hover color to my white, so we can actually see it when I'm hovering on top. That looks a little bit nicer. There is a reason that I have this on my list item, the background color, and again, just like this position relative, we'll see that when it comes up, which will be very soon actually. So right now this is a nice normal navigation. I can click on one of these, make it just work like normal, but I want to make it a mega menu. So the first thing we need to do to actually make this a mega menu is we need to build the submenu. And the submenu will go inside of each of these list items. So I'm just going to build it on this first one to begin with, and then we're going to come back and build it, just incorporate it into these other tabs once we finish the first one and it's all styled and looking good. So I'm just going to push this on its own a little bit so we can see that, make it easier for you guys to focus what I'm doing. Normally I wouldn't create all this empty extra space. So what I want to do now is inside this list item, I want to create a div. So I'm going to give a div class, and I'm going to call it menu sub. and I'm going to close that div. The way I'm doing this is I have my main menu and then I have my sub menu, but I'm starting everything with menu just so in my CSS I can be nice and consistent and I can know exactly what's going on. And I'm making this a nice big div, and inside of this div I'm going to come around and I'm going to add some things in there, and it's mostly going to be a whole bunch more links. So I have a list pre-built. Whoops, my spacing's a little off. So I have this ready to go already just to speed things up. A whole bunch of links to throw in there. So let's just save that and see what happens when I hover. Of course, once you have all your list items set up, don't forget, because I was pasting it in from something I already did, I forgot to include my UL. So we have an unordered list again, and then my unordered list has all of these. It's not better yet. But what I'm going to do now, which should fix it, is choosing my menu sub and setting this up to be a position absolute. And there we go. So I have my tab 1, 2, 3, 4, and then underneath that I get these links that are right there. And this is where my position relative is coming in on the UL. So this app, they're being positioned relative to my UL. If I didn't have that on, actually, I don't think a big change will happen right now. Yeah, I didn't think so. But this will come back very soon to help us out. Okay, so with that position being absolute, the other thing I want to do here is give it a background of 444. So we can sort of see it. And I also want to give it a width of 100%. And now this is where that 100% will make it 100% of the UL. So it's going to match the size of my UL and stop at that total size. So if you don't want it to actually be that big, you could say 80% or 50% or whatever you want. So when I hover over, you can see those all appear, and it's working nicely. And of course, normally I'd also want to do a display none, so it disappears. So when I hover over, and then I have to fix that. So now when I hover over, I need that display going from none. I need it to actually show up. Okay, so then what I need to do, let's just scroll down a little bit to move it up for you guys. I'm going to say my nav li hover. So when I hover on top of a list item, I want my menu sub to display block. So we can see right there it worked. I hover on top, and then the display mode of that changes from none to block, and I get a nice simple drop down. Now, if you just want to build a nice simple CSS only drop down, this would be all you'd have to do. The last thing we would need actually for a nice simple one is a nav, a menu sub li display block, just to reset them so they're not inline block, and then they stack up like that. And then you'd have a nice simple CSS only drop down. We want it to be a little fancier though, right? We need a mega menu. We need lots of stuff in there, different categories, some columns, and all of that good stuff. So there's a little bit more work to be done yet. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I want to bring in some categories in here, because usually we have a lot of categories. So H3 will be my category, close H3. And let's just take a look at that, and we can see that's working. Cool. Menu sub, we should just change my menu sub color to white as well. Color FFF. There we go. The other thing, these list items will have a padding of 0. Or is it the links that have the padding? Oh, it's the links that have the padding. My menu sub links will have a padding of 0. And right now this is kind of annoying that I have to keep hovering on top. So what I'm going to do is do an inspect element. On there, I'm going to go to my li, because it's the hover state of my li. I'm going to go over here to hover, and I'm in Chrome. It's a little bit different in the other ones, and just click hover so it's permanently hovered. So if I change my HTML and when this refreshes, I'll lose it. But as long as I'm only changing my CSS, it doesn't actually change the DOM over here. So I keep everything and it just makes it much easier to work. So that looks okay. A little bit of styling that I want to do yet. Let's just think for a second. I'm going to have a lot of these categories. So let's just take this whole thing here, copy, and paste another one in. So we have just 2 sets, and you can see it reset. I just click on hover and it comes right back. And we'll go back to my CSS. So I have that. Now it's not looking super nice. So what I'm going to start with is some padding of 2em on there, just to, there we go. Right away, that looks a lot nicer. Now for visual hierarchy reasons, it's really kind of weird looking right now. The spacing is just way off as far as I'm concerned. So what I want to do is come in and say my menu, I forgot what I called it. Oh, I didn't call it anything. It's just an H3. I'm going to give this a class of menu category. We're going to copy that whole thing and paste it on here as well. And we're going to say menu category margin top of, let's just do with margin. So I want more margin top and probably a lot less bottom. So margin top will be, say, 2.5em, left and right 0, and a bottom margin of maybe let's just do 0 and see what happens. It's better, but I need some on the bottom, 0.5. What happened? Why is it not working all of a sudden? Oh, whoops. 0.5em. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I have this. I don't want that space up here, though. I only want the space here. Let's yeah, I don't want any space up there. So what I'm going to do then is say menu category. Whoops, I forgot the period. Menu category first of type margin top of 0. So the first one will always have a margin top of 0, but all the other ones will keep this margin and it will space out nicely. I put my padding at 0 for those. I'm going to add in some margin. Let's just say margin bottom of 0.25em. Just to create a little bit of spacing between them. 3.5. Like that. And I do want them to also have a hover effect. So menu sub a hover. Let's do a text, nice simple text decoration underline. So when I hover on top, I get this little underline going on. I think that looks fine. It's nice and simple. That's all we need. Cool. So we have that. Now the main issue right now is if I keep adding more, they're just going to keep going underneath and underneath and underneath. So I have my submenu, which is nice. And then I have my categories. But if I really want this to work, I have to build a column system into my menu. So inside of my submenu, I'm going to come in here and add a div class is equal to menu column. Let's just call it menu column. I think let's go with a menu column 1 actually. Because I think we're going to do a couple of different ones. And I'm going to divide this up into 4 parts. So the 1 will be 1/4 of my menu. So we're opening that there, and we're going to close div here. So nothing really should happen right now. I just have it just like that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this menu column 1. Is that the right one? Yeah. And I'll copy that whole thing, and I'm going to paste it 1, 2, 3 more times. So right now, it's going to look terrible. It's just going to stretch down, and I have to scroll down to see everything. So we need to make my menu system work, my column system work. Not my menu system, my column system. So we're going to come down here and do a menu. Let's move that up. Menu column 1. And I mentioned we're going to have 4, so we might as well do it properly from the beginning. Menu column 2, menu column 3, and a menu column 4. I don't know if I'm going to use all of these in the demo, but it's good to set them up properly. So all of them will be a float left and float left. I'm not sure if I need anything else for the time being. And then my menu column 1 will also be a width of 25%. Nice thing about a column system of 4 is that it's really simple to use. And there you go. Wow. Isn't that look great? And it's super nice, and you know, it didn't take that much time to actually set up, and I have all my links in here and I can go through. Obviously it's all very standardized right now, but you could come in and just for fun to show you if one of these only had 2 items in it, and then I copy this whole thing, copy and paste, save that. You know, extra categories in this one or less categories in another one or anything like that. And you can get tons and tons of stuff into there, and it looks really, really nice. And I'm pretty happy with that, actually. And the fun thing with this is it's using CSS only. So just to go over one thing, a few things that I did here that are really important is, remember I said that I put my background color on the list item instead of on my link hover. So just to show you why, if I put this on my link hover instead, when I first hover over, it's going to look exactly the same. But when I go off my link, then that color is going to disappear, and that's a problem. So then when I'm coming through here, you know, this is working the same way, but I'm not hovering on top of my link anymore. Whereas when this is my list item, as long as I'm inside of this area, this is all part of this list item. So this hover effect is still working while I'm in here, which is one of the ways we can do this with CSS only. So that's really, really important that we do with that. Now on the tab 2, just to create something that looks a little bit different, let's go and grab this whole submenu. It's really long. Copy that whole thing. Let's throw that on my tab 2. So I'm going to go inside my list item, just like I did before, and paste that whole thing in there. But just for fun, let's change a little bit of what we have here. Let's come and make this one a column 2 instead of a column 1. Just to show you a little bit of what we could do. So there, it's a width of that. If I do a menu call 2, then my width would be 50%. So if I go on the 2, whoop, oh, and I just saw a problem right now. Things are shifting around. So this one's working great, but when I go in there, I don't want the edge of this matching here. I want the edge of it to stay in this. I want it to be exactly where this one is. I keep pointing at the screen, but you can't see me doing that. So yeah, when I hover on top of this one, it should be lined up exactly like this one is, which is nice and easy to fix, luckily. We just have to find where, right here, my menu sub. So I've already positioned it absolute, and it's relative to my UL. So all I need to do is on that one now change, I'll keep it up here, the left to 0. And I'm going to save that. And now you can see that it's always lining up with the left. But you can see that it's still lining up in the same place because we've told it that the left has to be 0 and it's relative to my UL. So it's staying in the exact same place all the time. The little jump you do see is from my scroll bar disappearing and reappearing right now. So we can quickly fix that just by taking off. Why is that one so long? Why do I have so much there? 1, 2, 3, 4. I screwed stuff up. I have too many. I added a column 2, which is taking up 50%, but I never got rid of one of my column 1s. Don't have room for all that. So there you go, just to show you. Now this isn't, I'm running into empty space now because this content's not big enough, but it's just to show you that, I could put paragraphs in there or longer text and it would fill up that space, no problemo. So once you've created it once, it's just a simple column system. If you're making something like this, I'm sure you used a column system. You could even use Bootstrap or something else like that to help you create this. I don't think that would be a problem at all, and it then just comes down to styling and making it look good, which is probably the hardest part of all of this. There's a few little tricks along the way, and this is the CSS only way of doing it. So I really hope you liked the video. If you did, please hit the like button to let me know that you did like it. And of course, if you have any questions, leave them down below. If you haven't subscribed, there's a new video like this, tips and tricks and all of that every single Wednesday. So make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can keep getting these every Wednesday and, keep up with your coding and all of that. And if you have any video suggestions or anything like that, please do leave a comment down below and let me know. Please don't be shy. And yeah, thanks so much for watching this video. Have a nice one, guys.